everybody out there in the stream chat and everybody that's watching. Appreciate you coming out tonight. And we do definitely have. Oops. Ain't that just bad?
I didn't hear nothing.
Didn't hear nothing. All right, let's start that all over. I appreciate y'all being here tonight. We do have a very special guest with us. And we first want to just kind of go around the room here and just check out what everybody's bees are doing. And something I'd like to do for next week's chat is maybe get people to send in a picture of their beehives. And we'll try to post those up with your names. And that way next week we can talk about other people's beehives besides our own. So, Lee, how's your bees doing?
Getting better. I got out there, I think it was last weekend or weekend before, and actually got to go through a few hives. And they're finally starting to brood up pretty decent. If I could get that picture here that you were talking about. I went through, I believe, 8 of my hives, and they all seem to be doing pretty good. I had one that was a little bit weak on feed. So I had another hive that actually had probably a little too much what they're going to need. So I stole 2 frames out of it and moved over. Bee population in it was pretty decent. It just didn't have a lot of stores left over.
Okay. What about you, Tom and Melissa? How are your all's bees doing?
Well, they seem to be looking pretty good for the most part. We were in them yesterday, and I was in them today on a couple different yards. Not everything. I went in a couple different yards. And I'm starting to see some smaller brood patches, nothing that is huge and extravagant, but nonetheless, you can tell that spring is right around the corner. I'm also noticing the last 2 days here, and it could have been a little bit before that, but just with me noticing, I've seen some pollen that's been coming in here the last couple of days. And when I was counting today, it was a little bit cooler today than it was yesterday, and a little bit more breezy, not bad, though. I noticed some orientation flights, but I noticed about 20-ish or so bees coming in with a full load of pollen. So it's just on the starting edge of it. It's kind of what that tells me. And I believe for us, it's probably a willow and a maple pollen that's coming in. But so far, everything's looking not too bad.
Awesome. Now, if anybody doesn't know that Lee is actually down in Louisiana and Tom and Melissa are out in Missouri. And I'm in the mountains of North Carolina, so our climate's a little cooler. We're running right around 55 degrees today. Bees were flying. We had some calls that some pollen was coming in, some light yellow pollen. I did see a dandelion for the first time here, so maybe that's what they're picking up on right now. I'm not sure, but it does make me feel good that, like y'all say, spring is right around the corner. So.
Yeah. We're at the beginning stages of it anyway, it seems like.
I've seen the leaves starting to form out on the dandelions, like coming out of the ground, but no flowers on them yet. Now, our clover, the leaves have come up on it about a week ago, and today is the first time I've seen some clover flowers coming out.
Wow.
At work.
So you ain't seen the dandelions yet, but you're seeing clover.
Yeah. Like I said, the leaves are sprouting up out of the ground on the dandelions, just no actual flower on them yet, no stem coming out of the center. And today, I believe we hit about 70 today. And let's see, right now, which it's 7:06 Central Time, and I mean, we get dark about 6, and we're still at 62 degrees.
That's nice.
Yeah, that's really nice.
Yeah, we're expecting snow tomorrow, so that'll be fun.
You're expecting snow tomorrow?
Yeah, it was like 53 today, and tomorrow we're expecting snow.
Oh my gosh! I know we're supposed to get cold, but not snow.
It's going to be really borderline temperature, so tomorrow's going to be a little bit of a chillier day. But I would probably call what we're going to have tomorrow more of a mood snow because it's nothing that's, I think, going to be traumatic for us. It's not going to be lighter accumulations and a wet, heavy snow, probably mixed with a fair amount of rain, maybe a little bit of other types of precipitation in there. That's what St. Louis does best is they change their mind and the weather department about every 6-7 minutes maybe. So it's pretty frequent.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's go ahead and we're going to bring our special guest in, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I met Fredrick Dunn, and then we're just going to let him go to town on some questions. And you guys in the chat, I need some really hard questions for Fredrick Dunn. We want to stump him tonight on our live stream if we can. We'll see what happens. So Fred, we're glad to have you here tonight. And if I'm sure everybody here knows who you are. If anybody hasn't, go to his channel. It's a great way to learn. And that's pretty much for me. That's kind of how I found Fred. I found Randy McCaffrey first and got into beekeeping. And then you look at more YouTube videos, and of course, Fred's comes up. And if for a new beginner, his information is super important. It'll definitely help you out. And so we was at the beach, and I decided, I'm going to send this guy a message and about beekeeping because I had built a horizontal hive. And so it was my first hive. And I thought, wow, I want to see what he thinks about horizontal hives. And what about putting a flow hive in a horizontal hive? And yeah, that's exactly right. I sent him that message, and he come on, and he pretty much thumped on my dream, saying that's not a very good idea. But what it did was, at least he's honest about it, because I've ran my flow hive unit, my easy flow hive unit, and it is extremely hard to get the bees to move horizontally over into the flow frames. They'll do it, but it's even worse than a vertical box. You've really got to squeeze that down. So he gives very good advice out like that right there. So, but my really first encounter with Fredrick was at Hive Life Conference. It was the second year of Hive Life Conference. And he came by, and I don't know if you guys know what it feels like to have a teacher and being pulled over by the police at the same time. That's exactly how I felt. I did.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, right.
So what he does first is, and just so y'all know, if you're ever around Fred, the first thing he does, he kind of gives you a little bit of a look. Whoops, lost Lee there. He kind of gives you a little bit of a look, kind of like, and then he kind of gives you a. You got that picture, that photo, Lee?
Yeah, I had a wrong button and knocked myself out. There we go.
There we go. So it kind of gives you a side look, like, is this guy really telling me, these horizontal hives do these certain things? And then he's got a second pose, and the eyebrow comes up. So if you'll move that next picture there, Lee. It's kind of like, what? So he's absolutely talking to me and asking me, well, why did you do that? And why did you do this? And da-da-da-da. And I'm like, oh, gosh. I swear I was in an interrogation room, and I thought I was going to have a heart attack. I had sweat pouring down all over me. So then you get the next picture, and his eye has totally went up. There it is. His eye has totally went up. He's kind of looking slant-eyed like at you. And then he finally, oh, yeah, okay, I can see that. And then he releases the pressure off of you. So if you guys have ever seen the video of Mr. Ed and Randy McCaffrey with Fredrick Dunn, I definitely felt like Mr. Ed up on that platform up there. The interrogation was intense. And that's what I like about Fred, though. He will look at things a little bit different than a lot of us do. Even a lot like Cappy does. He looks at things just a little bit different than other beekeepers do. And there's nothing wrong with that. And to look at it a science way is really, really good. But if you start seeing him turn that eye around, you better be on target because he knows his stuff, and he's definitely going to get after you just a little bit. So
He must be sizing you up.
Yeah, he's sizing me up. That's what it is, So
no, but is it my turn? Was that the end of the introduction and making fun of the way I look?
I know. I was worried you were just going to log off there for a minute. You're like,
I just love it when people they go through a video. They go through a video and grab the still shots they want to make you look any way you want. Actually, those were pretty generous, I think. It could have been a lot worse. But I do remember that encounter at the conference because I spotted your fake flow frames right away.
That's right. He was all over.
What's up with these? These aren't real. What's that? Yeah, I know those are expensive. He said or something. But that was I remember.
Yeah,
cool.
let the customer pick those up. Yeah.
I have a question for you.
Hopefully Fred won't be too mean to me tonight because I did steal a lot of his photos off his websites and his Facebook channel. And, I did come across a really cool photo of Fred, and I thought everybody deserved to see this photo tonight. And, it's kind of nice to see a little bit younger Fred. So if Leo'll throw that up there, we'll let everybody see that. Look at that right there.
Oh, what?
Look at that handsome photo there.
Back in those days, I would have thrown you flat down on the deck, but
I can definitely agree that would definitely happen. I can see it. So, well, that's amazing to see Fred so young. Boy, how old was you there, Fred?
I know that I was exactly 24 years old, and that was on a Western Pacific run, and I was a just made first-class petty officer, so I was an E6 in the Navy.
Wow. That's awesome.
And we were diving all over the Western Pacific, and I went to the Philippines and Japan and Korea and just everywhere you can think of to get in trouble.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for your service.
Yeah.
Thank you for your tax dollars, because we spent them.
As long as you're keeping us safe, it's money well spent.
Okay. Thank you.
So I have a question. So Fred, you said before that like you feel that the flow hives are not for beginners, right?
I don't think I said that. Did I say that?
I thought in one of your videos you'd said that you felt like a flow hive wasn't necessarily
okay, I can explain that. It's not that, it's the money. Okay, so part of this is when somebody's new to beekeeping and they're wanting to start out with a hive, just get a kit. Or a horizontal hive, and just go online, go to your catalog, Better Bee, Dayton, wherever you go, get a kit that comes with everything, because the whole thing's like $400.
Right.
And that's with a smoker and a brush and who knows what kind of bee suit, whatever. And figure out if beekeeping is what you want to do. The last thing you want to do is drop $500 on just a super.
Mm-hmm.
Or heaven forbid, $1,100 for the flow hive plus nonsense back here that I would never own. That is a picture. It's not even real in the background. So, and there's another one up here. So if you just add up what my background costs, it's ridiculous. Wait until you're older and less wise so you would spend more money.
Yeah.
But the thing of it is, that's really what it is. It's not that beekeeping is any tougher with a flow hive. It's really not. It's that I want to know that you want to be a beekeeper. So we kind of know the cuts the third year. 80% of people are quitting that third year. So if you make it to your third year, I would say, and you're selling some honey, it takes, my grandson, the genius, figured it out. It takes 1.5 years to pay for a flow hive and honey sales.
Mm-hmm.
So by that time, hopefully you're done fighting for every moment.
Mm-hmm.
David over, by the way, the comment section, there's David there that says diving as a sub sailor. I was not a sub sailor. So I was not a bubblehead. I was a surface sailor who used to certify deep submersibles, and I used to deploy as a rider on submarines. So I was not a sub sailor. Surface warfare all the way. Okay, so anyway, back to the flow hive. But so the other thing is, it seems cool because I know the marketing is you don't have to buy an uncapper, an extractor, processing for your. Well, you also don't have to do that if you've only got 1 or 2 beehives. You can, crush and strain. You can uncap and drain those things. You don't need all the other equipment. So I also advise people, hold off on that. I don't want to come over to your house when you just finished the basic beekeeper course and you're wanting to know, you just saw Bob Benny show you how to get a honey house together for under 70 grand. And you're over here, you know what I mean? Because some people do that. They really do.
Yeah.
And I just want them to wait, get the basics, make sure you've got a friend that's got bees. I didn't have, anybody right next to me that was raising bees. I chased a guy around a lot that dodged me successfully for years. And I try to catch him at the hardware store, and I try to catch him as a big beekeeper who wouldn't tell his secrets. And I'd get one question in and follow him to his car, and he'd manage to roll up his window and get out of the parking lot before I could find out where he lived. And I didn't have mentors, so I had to go online and watch videos, and there weren't any. YouTube sucked really bad. The videos were crappy. No, there were some really good beekeepers on, but I'm saying that the format was so terrible. In like 2006, I got Dr. Keith Delaplane's DVDs on disc, A Year in the Apiary, right? And that was from University of Georgia, and he was the chief entomologist down there. I think he probably still is. He's still a big deal down there. But so yeah, learn all you can. Don't get a flow hive. And that's not because I don't like them. I obviously like them. They work. But once you understand bees and know that you're in it, then you won't be putting them up for sale. I've seen flow hives go up for sale just because guys never even put them together.
Wow.
Mm.
You're going to spend an afternoon putting one of these together. That's a time investment. You know, some people just look at it and they put it off. When you can just get a box through the mail that you take out, you set it up, you put frames in it, you decide what kind of finish you want to put on it, unless it's made out of cedar, and you're good to go. So that's why I said that, Ricky.
Yeah, well, that's fine. That's understandable. Hey, I appreciate it. And anybody that gives me advice, I don't take it to heart. I try to figure out why the advice is given. And I think that's it with everything in life. Take the advice, figure out what the person is trying to say. Most people are just trying to help. They're not trying to be mean. And, I took your comment not to heart. I just tried to figure out a better way of doing things. So, and I appreciate that, Fred. I really do. So,
what's that?
While we're talking about YouTube here just a little bit, Fred, I went back on your channel. It looks like you've been on YouTube for 16 years, or that was the oldest video I could find. And I did find another really cool looking guy. There we go. Look at that. Look at that young feller.
What the heck?
Yeah. And look, you got all the stuff right there behind you, Fred, just like you do right now. You can just grab whatever you need, right?
Except it's all for birds back then. That's all chickens. I'm a poultry technician. So in fact, I know what that video was. It was telling you about different bird books you should get.
Yep, exactly right. Actually, we did listen to that video today, and so you kind of started out with chickens, if I'm not mistaken. Is that kind of what your YouTube videos were? Was basically chickens, right?
Well, at the beginning, yeah. And the good news is I've deleted a whole bunch of early videos. So too late for you, Ricky.
I missed out. Hey, there's a cool looking chicken.
That is a Mille Fleur de Uccle Bantam Feather-Footed Fancy Rooster.
Oh, wow. Okay.
In case somebody wanted to know.
That's a mouthful.
Somebody else might want to know what his name was. That's number 23.
Number 23.
So speaking of your videos,
the short name for it is Bearded Belgian de Uccle.
That's no better.
Okay, you need to break out. Everybody, turn around, get in your library, and pull out the American Poultry Association Standard of Perfection, and we'll go to page 92, and we're going to look at BAMs.
Hold on 1 second. I'll be back.
I was about to be impressed.
Yeah. Fred, so speaking of your YouTube history, and a lot of people don't know how you've gotten into beekeeping. I have heard you talk a couple of times about it. If you don't mind, just kind of go through that with our people in the chat and tell us kind of how you went down that rabbit hole into beekeeping until where you are today. Just kind of give us some of that information.
I just can't believe DC's Bee said chicken equals dinner. Okay, that hurts. Anyway, moving on. What was the question? How did I get into beekeeping?
Yeah, how did you get into beekeeping? And I got a photo. Anyway, this is the photo of your first hive that I could find on YouTube. So,
well, actually, I can tell it is one of the first ones because I painted all of my hives robin's egg blue.
Yep. You
can see the remnants of that, but okay, so really exciting. Anyway, no, I just, I was taking photos of bees. I was learning everything I could about bees. I wanted to see them. I traveled all over. Harrisburg is where our Department of Ag is located, and I harass those people. And because colony collapse disorder came out, Hackenberg is in the state of Pennsylvania. He's one of our big commercial beekeepers that migrates all over. He's the one that coined that phrase, colony collapse. He lost they were just empty hives everywhere. And I panicked because I walked around a bunch of fields around here like anybody would. And I looked at dandelions. I couldn't find a single honeybee on there. I thought, whoa, something's wrong. Because, there was nothing wrong. That was just me that didn't see a bee in a 5-minute walk across a field. So I thought, wow, something needs to be done. And so I tracked them down. I got permission because I already knew people there through my poultry. The poultry technician is licensed through the Department of Ag. And so I wanted to meet the inspector and take photos of everything. We recently were talking about foul brood. One of the first places we went to had American foul brood. It was a disaster. It was perfect for me. The guy's apiary had been hit by a bear. He had all this stuff torn apart. He was wiring straight 120 off of his house. That's how desperate he was to keep the bears out. I learned a lot about beekeepers, and I had a brand new bee suit. I didn't have gloves or anything, and I just wanted to take pictures of everything. So foul brood, chalk brood, bear damage, all of these things going on in one visit to one apiary. So I was able to document so much right there. And I wanted to give them away. The photos, I thought, Department of Ag will want to use them, and they're going to need this stuff, and Penn State will want it. I know these pictures, they're in focus. I mean, they're amazing. And they didn't really care about them. So it was all for me. And the inspector is the one that I credit for why I started keeping bees, because he's the one that told me to get my own bees. I'm sure he said it in a nicer way. It didn't come out like, get your own bees and stay home. It was more like, hey, Fred, if you had your own bees, you could stay at your house and take all the pictures you want. And I'm going to call him out. His name's Kent Castor. He's still an inspector in the state of Pennsylvania. But that's a shout out to Kent because he's the reason we're talking right now. So
that's right.
That's how it starts. You cross paths with somebody that knows stuff. I love those inspectors. They've seen it all. They have great stories. They have great experience. A lot of them they keep bees themselves, of course. And they've seen what's going right and wrong with so many different apiaries that if you want to learn what's going to work where you live, these people are a fantastic resource. There's a whole bunch of people that don't want to register, don't want to have their apiary inspected. They want to stay away from the man, they don't want him in their backyard. But this is a great way to know, first of all, hey, what do you think of where I live? Is this a good spot for bees? Today I would go to beescape.org and find out if it's a good spot for bees. But he was just a fantastic guy, and that's the reason I got started. And I kicked it off with 3 or 4 hives, just went online. I needed to buy bees. I was desperate to get bees, and of course I was doing it the best time of year, August.
Oh my gosh.
Right? Everybody wants to start getting bees in August. And then of course I wanted to be holistic, so I wanted bees that don't require treatment. I wanted survivor bees, and I was just reaching out to everybody that I knew everywhere. And of course that led me to the Bee Weaver family, Daniel Weaver and his wife in Texas. I'm going to get picked on if I say the town wrong, but it's Nova Soda or Nova Soda or however people down in Texas say it. I'm from the Midwest, so I don't know. But he hooked me up with survivor line bees, and I was treatment free for 10 years. Right off the bat, I never lost all my bees. I never had the huge disaster that a lot of beginning beekeepers talk about. And I think that's just because I had some good people I could contact, these inspectors. Dr. Delaplane's videos were pretty spot on, and I was just kind of one of those guys that had the confidence to just kind of feel it out. I did come home from school one day, and there's a big windstorm like we're having right now, 45-mile-an-hour winds, and all my hives were on the ground, all apart. Like the propolis hadn't held them together. So they were all indexed out in the snow.
Wow.
It is amazing what honeybees can take. Most people would give up and say those are done, but I'm telling you right now, push those hives together, put them right back up on their stands, strap them down, And you will be in shock on the next warm day to see bees flying out of some of those hives. Some of them didn't make it, but it wasn't a total loss. That was the best part.
Excellent.
There was a friend of mine here in the St. Louis area that actually had the similar situation happen. He's up in St. Charles. You'll know where that's at. And there were some storms that had run through. And this was about the time, and I believe that we were on that cold snap that most of the country, and especially the eastern coast, had experienced. We had that roughly about a 2-week cold snap. And he had realized it probably after a couple of days. And he was a little concerned with it. And I said, put them back together. I'm like, you'll be surprised. If the colonies were relatively healthy without much issue, I think, and the queen was not damaged. Well, I guess even if she was damaged, the colony would probably still stay together until they collapse. But I think to this day, I think they're actually doing pretty well. So
that's great. Yeah.
That's awesome. So Fred, how did you come up with the name The Way to Bee? Was you just sitting out on your porch drinking a coffee and thought,
okay, this is gonna sound dumb. I'm one of these people that gets premonitions all the time. Premonitions are different from, I can't believe I'm saying this to a bunch of YouTube listeners and everything, but anyway, so that's different from a coincidence, right? A premonition is you have a thought, and so I follow my premonitions. So I literally was asleep and I thought, I should call my bee thing The Way to Bee. And I thought, that's so obvious, So I woke up and I thought, but validation of your premonition would be, is the domain owned? So I went to the USTPO, the Patent and Trademark government agency, to find out, is that owned? There is one book with the title The Way to Bee, and it's from way back. And they didn't buy a domain. They didn't buy rights to the title or anything else. So I just jumped all over that. Bought the title, bought domains, registered it, and that's how it happened. It came to me. I woke up. I told Annette. I said, "Hey, what about The Way to Bee?" She said, "That sounds good." And so it seemed obvious to me. I realized that's a little bit of an arrogant title because it doesn't say a way to be. It's The Way to Be, as if this is the only way, right? But it's just The Way to Be. You could name a road that. It's The Way to Be. It works in so many levels. Mm-hmm. And I also bought a domain for my grandson this Christmas time. So his is The Days of Our Hives. and I couldn't believe that wasn't already taken, right? And it wasn't. So that's Quinn, my grandson. It's The Days of Our Hives, which is going to be perfect because he's a little guy growing up. And we already have like Smoke Through the Smoker. So go the days of our hive. And then they're walk it out, right? So there again, it's just those things just come to you. So
wow,
that's what that was about.
Oh, that's awesome.
I had a dream last night that I was in a spackling competition. So I hope that's not a premonition for something.
Spackling competition. It's only a premonition. Now here's the difference. This is what a premonition would be, right?
I've never spackled in my life. So
right, but then you just had that dream, and then that would be like this morning you get a call and somebody's like, "Hey, you know anything about spackling?" I don't know. So that's premonition. See the difference? It's really interesting.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be fair if anybody on this live chat called us to say that, okay?
Hey, you talk about spackling. Yeah.
Never spackled a day in my life, but apparently I was dreaming about entering a competition.
Well, now see, dreams, they can mess you up, but I think you should look into it now. You need to just do blind Googles on spackling and see what you're supposed to be doing. Because if there's anything I've learned, it's when you get an idea you're supposed to do. Like you get a feeling, you're supposed to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
You need to talk to them.
Right.
And you don't have to be weird about it. You don't walk over and say, "Hey, did you get a feeling that I might come over here? Like there's 300 people in the room. Did you get a feeling I might come over here and maybe talk to you? Does that feel right?" And then no. And then you walk away. But then 5 minutes later, they go, "Yeah, I actually did, but I was a little scared. Didn't want to talk to you."
Yeah.
Right? It's weird. So
spackling needs to be a little bit more organic than that, I suppose.
Yeah.
And Fred, you do have a website that you sell cups and stuff and The Way to Bees on them and all that stuff, right?
I don't have a website. It's just Teespring, which, Teespring. So it's it's like, I think it's the way, if you go to thewaytobee.org, which is my website, that is also freerangechickens.org. It is also fredsfinefowl.com. It all takes you to the same place. So you're not being rerouted, but there's a store there, and all it does is link you to Teespring.
Okay.
And those are all my designs. So if I drew it, or if I painted it, or if I illustrated it, that's where those come from.
Did you hand make all those cups and stuff, Fred?
Yeah, like this one. I made this one just before I came on tonight. Yeah, that's a standard. Now that, by the way, that cup right there with bees all over it is pretty cool because it has drones, it has the queen, it's got open larvae on it, it has some pollen, it has some honey. So for example, that cup is a great conversation piece because you can point this out, especially with kids. So I'm not trying to sell it. I mean, please don't buy it.
Do not, whatever you do
not shop at Teespring, Fred's Fine Fowl, with a discount code Fred5. Do not do it. Okay.
Yeah.
I just made up the discount, so you pay full price as everybody else. So,
So Fred, your channel, I feel like you spend a lot of time researching, and I may be wrong on this, and maybe I know you repeat the same things over and over and over and over again, but how much time do you spend on researching for your videos you put out? Because I feel like you spend a lot of time doing that, and a lot of thought, lots of little drawings. How long do you spend on one of those?
Okay, that's a great question. And I like the part where you said you just repeat yourself over and over and over. It's on a loop. We could just watch your video from last year, get the same information we're getting today. Way to go, Ricky. Thank you for that.
Sorry, man.
So anyway, no, here's one of the things I really like about questions is when people are asking you a question, I'm hoping I don't really have the answer. The whole point of that is I want to be driven into areas of beekeeping that I've not covered or maybe haven't covered well. So yeah, I do. Here's my day. Tomorrow's Friday. I do a Q&A every Friday. I start at 8 a.m. and I start going through all the questions and I filter through them. And then I start doing my research to validate what I'm about to say before I say it, because no one is smarter than everyone. So I find out if there are any publications on it, if there have been any studies done, if I can bring something, because it can seem like a really obvious, benign question that everyone asks, but there may be something new to talk about. There may be some detail that's been overlooked. And sometimes, here's my red flag for questions, by the way. If it feels like an argument, in other words, it's a setup. There's another YouTuber that might have said it, and this person is asking the same question to settle someone's hash. Ooh. I don't settle people's hash. I don't talk about other channels ever. So if I smell a rat, if it feels like somebody's just looking for validation, like they've been arguing about something, and the question, by the way, takes up 3 pages, those are warnings. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, but yeah, it's a full day of study for me. That's all I do all day Friday. We don't book anything else on Fridays. And it's that reason I keep notebooks. I have stacks. It's ridiculous. I have stacks of research papers, publications, studies. Google Scholar is my friend. If you want to find out the latest study, so for those that are listening out here who like to read and get deep and go down rabbit holes, do your search through Google Scholar, because that's going to eliminate all the opinion pieces. It's going to put you in touch with real researchers. And then the next layer is the person that published the paper, the people that were involved in the studies, their names are on them. You can get these names, contact the person, shoot them an email. You'd be surprised. These researchers, yeah. So these, and this is Spanky. Okay, I know what you guys are talking about. All right, they were talking about you before you hear Spanky. I don't want to start a fight, but I'm just letting you know. But yeah, so people are accessible. So reach out to the person that's done the latest published study. They love, by the way, to talk about what they've been researching. So there's a lot of research in it, and that's why I like to do the Q&As to begin with. It makes me more aware of what's going on in beekeeping.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I do appreciate you spending the time, and people don't really understand when you're doing videos, it takes a long time to produce a video, and you're going beyond that because people are actually asking you questions. You want to give them the right information, and some of it, and you really go into deep detail a lot of times, and I know I appreciate it, and I'm sure everybody on here also does. So, Fred, we do appreciate your time and your effort. It's not easy. Maybe a lot of people think, oh, well, that's just I can just go do whatever I want and say whatever I want. You really do dig the data out and give the information, and I do appreciate that so much.
Thank you. And I do also pass on those links, like in the video descriptions. If somebody wants to do a deeper dive, you want to read, through a scientific paper or something, I have those references there, and I keep all those references. Heaven forbid, I know this never happens to YouTubers anywhere. You can be called out on the facts you present. I know that's shocking and so unheard of, but it has happened to me. So having those resources ready to cut, paste, drop in, and say, take a look at it yourself.
It's awesome.
So
talking about your channel, can you tell us about a few backyard beekeepers that have asked you a question or they've changed how you keep bees? And it's a question that maybe I didn't ever think about. Is there a couple beekeepers, backyard beekeepers that have said, maybe I shouldn't be doing that, or maybe I should change up this way?
You mean they asked me a question and it dumped the apple cart and changed the way I do business?
Correct. Yep. Absolutely.
I can't think of it.
That's all right. That's all right.
You've actually.
I do appreciate.
I gave you a hard question finally, right?
What's that?
I finally give you a hard question you can't answer. That's awesome.
Yeah, they definitely lead me down paths that I may not have thought of. So that's cool. But I haven't received a question that said, "Oh man, that makes perfect sense."
Okay.
You know what I mean? I wish I had one, but none comes to mind right now. So
okay, that's cool.
What about one single change that you may have implemented along your journey that was a game changer, so to speak? Do you have anything that you would that would fall in that line?
Yeah. Well, I can tell you right away that the thing that's changed the way I manage bees and keep myself from ever needing bees is going the nuke route. A lot of people are talking about nukes now. I dragged my feet on that for a long time because even when I caught swarms, I put them in full-size boxes. I figured, why mess with them later? And they do fine. They just don't do awesome.
Yeah.
So when I started putting them in these wooden 5-frame deep nuke boxes, that's an insurance policy. And Michael Palmer will talk about the sustainable hive up in Vermont. And those are resource hives that keep you in business. You have queens when you need them, eggs when you need them, brood when you need it. And Ricky was talking about, putting flow frames on a horizontal hive. This is what I tried last year because they're also, if you're making comb honey or anything that requires, warmth and a lot of bees and a lot of production, those skinny nukes, we stack them 3 high. I stop at the 3rd level. And then you just have to keep pulling the top frames out. So we're checkerboarding them all the time to keep them building wax, and we use them for building resources for other hives. And you can make a modified box for flow frames, put 3 frames in that 5-frame box right on top during max production, during a honey flow, right? Nectar flow. And they will build those out so fast, you pull them just like other frames. And instead of, because the flow hive, you open the back and you use the key and you crack it open. Pull your flow frame out and you'll see it's all capped. Put it on a rack in your honey room and then put another one in. Just buy the flow frames. And if you have skills, woodworking skills, you can modify the box because they do not fit the standard laying straw. That's a game changer for me because that's what we did last year is we pulled the flow frames at the end of the year when we're packing down hives for winter and we racked them all up. And I have pictures of it. They're pretty fun because it's tube after tube after tube of honey just coming out like mass production. But it's what you would be doing in uncapping and extracting and spinning, right? So instead, we've got them all in a rack. They're draining out. And then you put them in storage. So for me, that's the combination of the new hive configuration, these tall, narrow chambers, very productive. The bees they seem to really be able to get traction so much faster. If you put a nuke in there, I mean, not a nuke, but if you're collecting a swarm or some small cluster of bees that you normally would write off, you start them off in a single 5-frame deep nuke, and they do so well. It's really, really, now I kick myself for not doing that 10 years ago, because that stuff was around. I was just stubborn and always used a deep bottom box. And the other thing that, to answer your question, other things I've changed, venting. So I completely altered my venting. Now, here's the thing. I get confronted sometimes in person, which is shocking because most people confront with their keyboards. That's easy. Have someone come up to me, oh, so you know everything and the books know nothing. And I thought, what are we talking about? The venting. So I said, no. Venting is good. An upper vent and a lower entrance is good. Also, no upper vent and having only a lower entrance is good. If one of those is insulated, that's good with no upper vent. But if you're talking about the standard box that we all bought when we started beekeeping, and you had 2 deeps, 2 mediums, and you put your pennies on top of the inner cover and stuff, you had to vent it. It's not insulated. There's going to be condensation out the wazoo on top of that. So yes, the books are right, and yes, I'm right, because these are the variations, and that's why
different configurations, right?
Yeah. So when people sometimes people get it, you have to do it this way, you have to do it that way. No, both ways work. That's why these differences exist. They both work for different reasons, and so once you realize that that's how that works, then you eventually convert your whole. For me and my climate in my zone, they're all no longer vented. But you also have to scale it down for the size of the cluster. So we're in a single deep and a medium going into winter. If I had 2 deeps and 2 mediums, that's going to need venting. You're going to lose those bees. There's going to be so much condensation up in the top of that, insulated or not, that's too big for wintertime.
Yeah. So
it seems like a tiny change. The other thing is, like any bee club, there's always somebody handing out 1/4-inch hardware cloth for your mouse guards and everything. And I thought, I don't want to screw on a mouse guard at the front of my hive. Why don't we just find out how small a hole mice can get through? So here's the fun of backyard beekeeping, coming up with an experiment to see how that works. Right. So we have mice everywhere. We have deer mice. We have house mice. The house mice are never in your house. The deer mice are. I don't know what that's about. We have shrews. We won't talk about the shrews. But so you set up a feeding station of a beehive sitting on the ground in a shed, right? You put food in it. You let the mice just zip in and out of there. Now we put an entrance reducer on it. You end up with a really cool study of different entrances that the mice chew. Look at that. And all the different entrances that work and don't work. And look at this one. Even though it's nice and wide, it's 3/8 of an inch high. No mouse gets into that. No shrew gets into that. So forget the mouse guard. This is all we had to do, some backyard science. And that held true because Sean Woods, the trap master, Mousetrap Mondays, I don't know if you guys know who that is. He just published another one showing the holes and the slats, different sizes, what mice can get through. And these are fun experiments. So backyard beekeepers should test things out. Now we don't need hardware cloth. So there are little changes that make a big difference. And it's just a lot of fun to figure stuff out. And now that I have 3 grandsons, but one of them who just left, he wanted to take this discussion for me tonight. But I threw him outside and made him wait for his mother in the rain.
Seems legit.
Yeah, absolutely.
But he comes up, everything is an experiment to him, like he just loves coming up with ways to prove thoughts that he has about bees. So
he must be hanging out with his grandfather quite a bit then, I suppose.
What's that?
I said he must be hanging out with his grandfather quite a bit, I suppose.
He is, and it's a way to redirect him. Like he had a bee get under his shirt because he was just out. He goes out in the bee yard with no protective clothing. because I don't know why he does that. He can choose anything he wants to wear. But a bee flew into his shirt, stung him on the chest, and then he's like, "It's biting me, grandfather." And yes, I make him call me grandfather. "It's biting me, grandfather." He says, "It stung him, and then she's biting him." So I said, "Wow, she really hates you. Listen, let's catch that bee." So you can tell, because he is tearing up. He did not like it. I said, "Let's catch the bee, and let's find out. She's lost her stinger. How long will she live without her stinger?" So he immediately forgets about the pain he's got. We get this thing in a petri dish, which of course everybody has hanging around, and we put it on the kitchen table where every bee and every science study should occur, always in the kitchen. Live things, dead things, makes no difference. Kitchen table. And he starts timing it. So he broke out a timer. And he said it tonight. 55 minutes and 32 seconds is how long they live without their stinger. But see, he forgot about the pain, and now he's got some facts and he's got some observations. But now we just have one. What about a consensus? Don't we need more than one? That bee might have already been a little sick. Maybe you smashed her a little. So now we have to get more numbers and find out if that's a consistent figure. That's what he does. And I want to give you some insight to what else he does. We've seen the little emojis and signs that come up. It takes one bee spends its life and produces an 1/11 of a teaspoon. Okay, we've all seen that. So why don't we just say it takes 11 bees to make a teaspoon? And then, so Quinn and I are sitting down. So how many teaspoons are in a cup? Wow, how many teaspoons, how many cups are in a quart? So now he's got this piece of paper he carries with him when he sells honey. 2,223 bees made this quart of honey.
Wow.
Right?
That's all.
It's their life's work. And he has 100% success rate at selling honey if he can get them to open their door, he says.
Yeah.
So once they open the door, it's all over.
Well, and I'm sure he can do that pretty easily whenever he reels them in with a fun fact. You know, people.
It is, and that's just it. He's not just a kid coming and go, "You want to buy some honey?" You know, he wants to tell you about the bees and how it was made and how many it took to do it. And it's really exciting because, you know, he's going to pay for his college that way. Because I'm so generous, we let him keep $2 out of every 22 that he earns. And
what a great grandfather.
I get the fat stacks. So
teach a man to fish.
That's it. Teach a man to fish. That's right.
I can hear him now. He say, "Hey, grandfather, you know, I took the first sting, and you're right. We do need another experiment. And I think you need to take 2 stings and see if we get the same reaction."
No,
is he going to have to take all those stings to collect all the bees?
Yeah.
Somebody's got to.
That's not going to work. I'm so ahead of a 9-year-old right now. 8-year-old, actually. He's 8. I'm so ahead of him still. So that's just it.
He very well may pass you up, though, so you better stay on your toes.
It's every teacher's dream that the student surpasses the teacher.
There you go.
That's all I ever want. It's our job to get them down that path faster.
That's right.
You know, and that's what we're here for. If we're not going to help them along, I do let him problem solve. He put together a flow hive last year, and I gave him the worst tiny screwdriver. I think it's the little tool that comes in it. It's just a little tiny black wrench. He was in that living room turning in those screws. Now, we've got power screwdrivers and everything. If you think I'm handing him one of those, no, I want to see if he would really spend 3 hours putting together a super or whatever. And he did. And he did. He earns every tool he gets in beekeeping. And he always goes out there and inventories his stuff to see if anybody took it. Who's taking his stuff? Not this guy. So.
Fred's going to take it and make him work for it again.
So, guys, we really need to get a good question tonight. We got a lot of great beekeepers on here tonight. We need a question tonight to ask Fred to stump him. So, anybody in the chat, get a question up, or let's get some questions up and see if we can't stump Fred here.
That's a good question right there.
Okay, so David, are you asking me to ask it? David wants to know if straining at 200 microns extend the time before crystallization. So here's the thing too, that 200 microns, that still lets pollen through and stuff. So you get a good raw honey out of that. So that's not really a fine filter. So it's not so much that 200 microns, which is a great filter to use if you have warmed up honey to put through it. It's going to depend on the honey source. So if we were running a bunch of goldenrod through that, we're still going to get set honey. So it really matters how you're going to store it, the temperature you're going to store it. Fine filtering can help a little bit too, of course, and some people ramp up the heat. We try to keep the heat low because, again, we don't want to damage the honey. So it can alter the flavor too. So here's the thing. If you want to keep it from crystallizing, if you've got some kind of walk-in freezer situation, or if you've got a big horizontal freezer, those things don't cost very much. And if they're well made, they don't run a lot. So if you could keep your honey jars in there, they're not going to crystallize. So that's what I tell people. The honey's not freezing, by the way. It's just at freezer temperatures. Mm-hmm. So that locks it down. Not only that, the flavors are all there. All of those volatiles are still there. It's not degrading as it would if you kept it at, people think, keep it in the basement at 55 degrees or something. It's still going to set, still going to crystallize. Mm-hmm. So it really depends, again, the source of the nectar, and then what you do with it afterwards. And I think if you've got a big freezer, put your best honey in it and just lock it in. If October is a German word for 8, why is October 10th? October the 10th month on the calendar. Do I have to answer that? Is that?
No.
Is he saying 8? So, sind Sie sprechen Deutsch? Because ich nicht sprechen Deutsch. Ich sprechen Deutsch nicht so gut. 8 ist nicht so gut. Okay, there. I'm making that up. That's not German, but I thought it would sound right.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So, German word for 8. Why is October the? Stop trying to trip me up because I'm not trippable. Okay. What magnification is good to look at mite legs? The highest magnification you can get. And when you look at those mite legs, by the way, 5x is good. So 5 times, 500%. I hope to see their little pads, their little tarsals chewed right off. And I love to find them mangled. I'm sorry if that hurts somebody's feelings. But when I see a little mite and it can no longer scoot around and we pull it up and it doesn't have the little pads on its feet, which, by the way, are how we think oxalic acid gets into their system through these little tarsal pads. And I love to see them chewed off. But if you've got a 5X, but if you're looking, get an inexpensive microscope and do a 400X and you'll really see it. So if we're talking about just the feet, I have a 5X on a big camera that I use, which if we're talking photography, macro is 1-to-1. So it's the size it is in life, the size it is on the sensor. But Leiwa makes these lenses for all camera makes, and they have a 5X. So in other words, it's 5 times what it would normally be on your photography sensor. So if you've got a high megapixel full frame sensor or something like that, take a picture of it with ultra macro. It's called a micro macro. And then expand it, and you'll really see details that you just won't believe. So, can you determine the genetic strain of a honeybee by color or physical features? I stay confused about that. No, you can't. So even when you look at a queen honeybee, you might look at a nice golden abdomen and go, oh, southern honeybee, she's light colored. Oh, look, this all black one. Oh my gosh, that's got to be a German honeybee, or it's got to be a carniolan or something like that. These colors and physical features do not anymore show us the genetics of that bee. And it's not locked down. You can get basic, you can get close. But entomologists will tell you now, other than genome sequencing, you're not really going to know exactly what you have. We have really hybridized a lot of our bees today. And so they've even measured the veins on wings, the length of the wings, the shape of the wing. And entomology students have done thousands and thousands of those and found inconsistencies. So it's very difficult. They did that with the Africanized line too, trying to identify those physically with features and measurements. And that, again, has failed. They're so hybridized. Hey, Fred, what's your secret to get the bees to work the flow frames? I assume establishing a good honey bridge to the flow frames is key. I'm glad Brian asked that because it is, and this is different from what the people that invented it do. So I start with a full deep hive and make sure they've worked that out, 80% full. I get a medium super on top of that, and I don't use a queen excluder. So that's another thing. I never use queen excluders. So once they fill that second box and everything's capped, I find that the queen tends to stay below. This is also another area where you cannot have an upper entrance. You cannot have an upper vent. If you want to keep your brood low and near the entrance, it can be the only entrance. Okay. So now the honey bridge is what I call the area where it's nothing but capped honey or heavily filled cells with honey. And above that, so once those, if it's a 10 frame medium super and 8 out of 10 are full, put your flow super on. I also don't prime it with any kind of, I don't put beeswax on it. I don't spray sugar syrup on it. Even if it's brand new, I just put it up there and they go for it. So and that honey bridge, that's something I started doing, I don't know, whenever I first started talking about it, but I never wanted to use queen excluders because you talk about backyard experiments. We set out queen excluders of different makes, plastic, metal, and so on. And we put feed out for the bees. So we had bees, even the native bees here, so the bumblebees and everything were coming to it. And then overnight, we put the queen excluders on top of those. It was really telling to see how difficult some of the worker honeybees had, how much of a tough time they had squeezing through those. A lot of them could do it. A lot of them simply couldn't. So even at best, they were struggling a lot to get through so they could access the sugar syrup that they were desperate for at the end of the year when it's dearth period, and they're really intense about getting those resources. That was my wake-up call. If you looked at which ones they could get through the best, somebody may want to know that. The metal ones with the round metal queen excluders, they were getting through that the easiest. But again, eliminating those increased honey production noticeably. So so Castle Hive says his observation hive is better than Fred. See, insecure people, this is the kind of stuff they say, right?
I might have accidentally built him one, Fred. So
I have to say though, I think ours is better than Castle Hives.
Oh. There it is again. And so for those who don't know Castle Hives, that's Brian. He doesn't put his name on his thing. He just hides behind Castle Hives because it's a fortification that keeps him safe from anyone. And he was going around North American Honeybee Expo pointing out where his box was located in the center of the run of the box wall.
Yep.
It hurt my feelings a little bit to point out to Brian that if you know anything about block work, brickwork, masons, the most skilled masons are doing the corners and the novices are doing the runs through the middle. So that's a novice box. My corner box was where the experts would be located. So.
That's right.
Nice.
I got a question for you, Fred.
Sure.
Have you seen any research on if honeybees know how to what's the word, cheat tuber flowers, so like the hummingbird flowers or the butterfly flowers? I call it cheating because that's the term that I heard used. If honeybees know how to cheat to get to the nectar inside, if they just know that, or if they can learn that.
Well, I think here you're talking about when they chew into the base of the blossom.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's what I think happens with the honeybees for that. And this happens when other resources are not plentiful, right? I think that another bee like a bumblebee has already partially damaged it. And I think that then the honeybee came along and found that access point, and they can get their tongue in there and they can get some of those resources. Because keep in mind, when the bumblebees come into, they're the number one culprits. The bumblebees will chew into these, right? And the reason I think this is because that flower continues to produce nectar throughout the day. So when the bumblebee visits it, it leaves. And we all know honeybees exploit every opportunity they have when they find a high sugar content nectar resource. So I don't think the honeybee is coming up against the flower and actively chewing to locate the sweetener. I think that access hole has already been made and that the honeybee is just exploiting the opportunity. What do you think?
Yeah, I've got a video a couple years back. I had a pineapple sage that would bloom really late in the year, and it has tuber flowers. and it would be loaded with honeybees all over it. Every flower would have a honeybee. But they weren't trying to get into the flower for the top. They were doing like a carpenter bee does.
Chewing through the side.
And there would be 1 or 2 carpenter bees on there. And I wondered if they observed the carpenter bee.
The carpenter bee is notorious for chewing into the side of blossoms.
Or if they just instinctively know that they can.
Now, I'm not saying it's impossible that a honeybee could do it. They've got the mandibles. They could do it. But carpenter bees are known to do it. Bumblebees are known to do it. Those are, if you've got an opportunity to directly observe them, then maybe you could watch them at length and see if you can see one actually chewing a hole. We know they're smart. Once they learn how to do something, they certainly will do it over and over again until they no longer need to do that. And they have the ability to chew, but that's a lot of extra energy for the honeybee. They're more opportunistic, I think.
Well, there was nothing else blooming at the time. That was the end of the year.
Okay. Yeah, they are desperate that time of year. It'd be great, by the way. You talk about a short list of videos that would be fantastic, that would share some behavior of a bee that isn't widely known. You're describing one that would be really great if you could get in there and get a video of one actually making that initial cut into that blossom.
Video I took and see.
Yep. Yeah.
Do you have carpenter bees up there?
Oh, yeah. I like to snatch them right out of the air.
I don't.
Well, because here's why knowledge is fun. I give a lot of talks and stuff right here in my apiary, and the carpenter bees, the males defend. They hover right in front of you. They have that big yellow square in front, and it's all bluff. So you have a choice. If you're really quick, you can slap them out of the air, and people can get a little surprised by that. But if you grab one and go, oh my gosh, this is so dangerous, smell it. So, and you can do this. Here's another fun thing to do too. Grab yellow jacket wasps. Because at the end of the year, I know you're shaking your heads. Listen to me. These are great party tricks. The yellow jacket wasp, when you look at their antennae, and it's just a smooth arc all the way out, and it's really long, those are the males. They have no stinger. And then you can act like you don't know what you're doing. What's it like to pick up a wasp like that? And you just kind of grab him up, and his little tail comes around. He's acting like he could sting you. No stinger.
Wow.
So, and the same thing with the carpenter bees, but the carpenter bee can bite. The male has little mandibles. He can try to bite, but that's his only tool.
Yeah,
the female lets you have it.
I keep them around the apiary.
Yeah, so Spanky, grab carpenter bees.
I'll leave them. I saw one, a male.
Yeah.
He may not be something formidable to you, but I saw a male knock a bumblebee out of the air that was looking for a nesting spot near the hives.
Right. They headbutt each other. Yeah. They'll run into everything. They'll run into other carpenter bees. If you see 2 carpenter bees rolling on the ground in the pavement, don't take too close a look. That is beyond a PG rating right there. So
they kept
but they do. The males chase off honeybees. They chase off everything, including other carpenter bees. Yeah.
They go up to the mouth of the hive, and then six guard bees peel off, and all of a sudden he's not so brave no more. He takes off.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not going to put up with that nonsense down there. Okay, so how do we get the bee companies to make a bigger extractor for Lands frames? The biggest one I can find is a 4-frame. You know what? You're talking dollars and cents right there. And that's because the Lands hives are not as popular. People that are designing extractors are making them for the most common frames, which are standard Langstroth frames. If you go to Dr. Leo's website, horizontalhive.com, he has the full-size extractor, but it's not going to hold commercial numbers, right?
So I got a little bit on that, Fred. Talked to John Hill while I was out in Missouri with Tom and Melissa there, and they are going to come up with a bigger extractor for Lands frames.
For Lands frames. And the good news about that is if you get I'm glad Hilco is doing that. And that's an advantage to having contact with these people that can make those decisions. Because if it can handle the Layens frame, it can also handle the Langstroth frames.
Yep.
So if I were doing it over, I already, spent all my money and bought a big extractor. And I wish I had just purchased the big Layens extractor, then I could use everything smaller. So, and it wasn't that big of a difference in price either. So that's good news. And so that's a good reason they tuned in tonight. Does he have a ballpark on when he thinks something like that might be available?
He didn't really tell me, but they are definitely working on it, and they see that there is a demand, that the Lance hives are becoming a little bit more popular in the United States, and there's more people asking for them. So he felt like more than 4 frames would definitely be worth it. And like you say, he said the same thing, where they can put deep frames in or mediums or whatever deal. So yeah, they fix the baskets that way. So
yeah,
knowing John, if he's working on something like that, I would not be surprised. And I don't have any insight on this. But I wouldn't be surprised if you wouldn't see something coming out within the next year or so. I know he's got a few things that he's been working on himself personally, but I wouldn't be surprised. If it's something that he's working on and there's a demand for it, I'm pretty sure he'll get right to it.
Yep.
Yeah, but I will just say for the record that the standard Langstroth horizontal hives that are built by Ricky are at the top of the list.
There we go.
There we
Thank
go.
you. I appreciate
We
that.
got 3 in the backyard. Well,
For maximum versatility, maximum availability of materials, choices of frames, choices of foundation, everything else. I have Layens hives. They do fantastic. They're insulated. I got them from Dr. Leo. They're insulated with lamb's wool and all that stuff, and they're fantastic hives, but everything is unique, So, and I know I'm leaving Russell Koopman hanging here with is mixing creamed honey for 3 days better than 1 day, and why? I will say I've never made creamed honey, so I can't give a good reason for that one way or the other.
Better Bee actually just posted a video a couple of weeks ago on YouTube, on their YouTube channel, about creamed honey and the days that you should and how long and what happens the longer you do it. So I would check that out. I can't remember all the exact details, but
I don't know if he has any videos out there, but Byron Ferris with Ferris Farms has got that figured out pretty well too. He's his creamed honey is pretty smooth.
Was he the one at the conference? Who is he?
Yes.
Does he have is it little winged, like his little card is? Do they have a bunch of samples out on crackers and stuff right there?
I don't know about that. Let me.
Well, he always brings his Lyson creamer.
Yeah.
Too. Like the second Hive Life, he had it set up right at the door entrance when you walked in. I don't know where he was last year.
Oh, that's a different one. Okay, that's a different company. But yeah, go to the people that make the creamed honey that you like and get them to spill on how they do what they do.
But Better Bee had a good video on explaining why you want to do it for a certain amount of days and how many days and how many minutes a day and all that stuff. So check that video out. It was a short video.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, guys, we got a bunch more questions on here tonight for Fred, and he does a Q&A. So, I think you guys asked a lot of really good questions tonight. I don't want to keep him up too late. He's old. We don't get him past his bedtime. So,
okay. Is that reverse psychology? What do you?
Maybe just a little bit. But before Fred goes, I do want to. There is somebody that is probably the biggest fan of Fred, and he probably knows who it is. But when Fred's at the conferences, a lot of times, there is a certain little lady that's with him, and she will absolutely stand back and let him talk to everybody. I mean, she will just pull away. And I'll be honest with you, I have talked to her more than I have Fred, and we've had great conversations at the conference and stuff. But your wife, Fred, you're blessed to have her. She is awesome. She's so friendly. She's great.
She's the best, and as you can see, she believes in economizing her energy when she likes to go for a walk and look around the yard. This is like, that's what she does when she wants to go to the kitchen to get coffee. She just jumps on me, and I support my wife. Let's just say that. That picture is proof.
Good job. Well done.
Yeah, she is awesome. I tell you what, she is a blessing to have around, and my wife loves talking to her, by the way, also. So
she is. I'm not kidding, and not just because she's my wife, but she is like one of the nicest people you will ever meet. Always has been that way. Always, just the nicest person.
And just sit there and talk to you. I mean, she talked to us for a long time at the first conference, and she'd never met us before, and I had a really good conversation with my wife that first time, and it was very nice. You got a great wife there, Fred.
Yeah, thank you. I agree. Yeah, absolutely. She's
so
not
Fred,
in jeopardy of being sent out in the cold or anything.
Right. Right. So we're going to, if Fred, you're welcome to stick around if you want to. You can jump off at any time. We're going to open it up for more of an open chat. So people are welcome to come on and talk, ask more questions, and we'll try to talk for about another hour, and then we'll cut out tonight. So
can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Is this like a stream team? Is this your normal group for live chats, or?
We are, yeah. This is
This is your group.
This is our group. Yep.
Minus me. Okay.
Well, yeah.
You want to be part of the group, Fred?
Well,
yeah, Fred, right on, brother.
I think it's been pretty well established that I'm running out of energy. I'm about to pass out because I'm old. But I do have to go, and I do appreciate that you brought me on. I had a good time, and I want to thank you just for including me. And it's great to get to know you guys a little better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate
you, Fred.
Thank you.
I'm good. Yep.
And if you guys ever get a chance, Fred really does a lot of photography, and that's one of his photos right there. It's just absolutely beautiful. It's great having him on here tonight to be with us. And I appreciate everybody asking him questions. He's always been really good to me. He's always given me great advice. And that just goes with everybody in beekeeping that you meet. It's just, they're just awesome people. There's a lot of you guys in the chat that I've met before. I appreciate you guys. But it's nice having that fellowship around you that you can bounce questions off of or ask people questions. So, Fred's awesome. You guys are awesome.
Yeah.
He didn't know the answer to my question.
Well, and that's cool. That's the good thing about what he does is, you get into that scientific stuff and figure it out. And he give you a good thing. He said, hey, well, you go out and look at it. And that's the thing about his backyard beekeepers. It doesn't have to be Fred that does it all the time. Rick can go out and make his own experiments, right? And then I can share that with everybody else. And we're just as important as any of these other beekeepers that do these little experiments. We can do those. We're good enough to do that.
So that's like one thing that we like to do is do not necessarily experiment, but experiment with different, like we're pollen trapping or the jar comb that we did in your horizontal hive or different things. We reserve certain hives in our home yard just for those specific things. Like we have our production hives and we have our hives that we want to split, but then we also have certain hives that we keep in our backyard at our house. And those are our experimental hives, so to speak. So anybody can do that. Just, have those separate from the hives that you actually want to make honey out of.
Sure.
Right. Well, that's kind of what I'm doing with a hive. I've got one that I'm build. This hive is just a build cone. I want it to build cone.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
This one over here. This is my queen area, and this is my hive builder. I have gotten to that stage. I want to play a little bit, and kind of see what I can come up with. Right. So,
Yeah.
We've done it before too. When you talk about building comb, I'm a huge fan of new, freshly built comb, and you can introduce those into some of your colonies to pull out some of the older comb in there. Our idea was only to keep most of our combs around for a 5 or 6-ish year time span, and then start to cycle those out. But sometimes along the way, you'll find certain colonies are just, even throughout the spring season when they're stimulated, they're just really good at building comb. And we'll start pulling frames out of those, freezing the honey frames, that we can use later on, and then putting new fresh foundation in between, kind of checkerboarding those in. Because if they're already stimulated and they want to do that, I really don't want to stop them, but again, I suppose it really has to do a lot with what your goals in beekeeping are. If you want to produce large amounts of honey, maybe you don't do that.
Right.
It really is dependent upon what your specific goals are. And I mean, a lot to do with the area that you're in, because that'll change a lot too. So
and that goes to, I had a gentleman that made a contact with me. Mark is his first name. I can't remember what his last name is. And he talked about a little bit about, he wants to know why some people talk about overwintering and just a single deep versus a double deep. And he wanted to bring that conversation up to people in the chat and people on here. And, I really think my master beekeeper uses the word, it depends. What are you wanting to do with that single deep colony, right? Is it going to be something, is this the hive that you're using to build honey with? And if it is, and you go down to that single deep, you're going to slam sugar water on this hive, and you're going to make sure as it shrinks down, they're putting honey in this single deep box. You're not just letting it have nothing in it. You've robbed everything off. You're in a single deep. You're not going to do that. It all depends on what you want to do.
That's
and
right.
Even with a horizontal hive, I think right around, you could probably get away with 13 frames in a horizontal hive, but 15 or 16 is better. And I'm a firm believer it's better to have too much honey on a hive for winter than not enough. And that's just my opinion. And it just depends on what you want to do with it. So what do you guys think about that?
I think like you just said, erring on the side of caution is not going to be detrimental in any way. I know sometimes people have a little bit of an issue with feeding back sugar water. There was a gentleman I had a conversation with not too terribly long ago that was not a fan of that whatsoever. And there was a lot of things that rabbit holes that him and I kind of dove down. And I explained to him, I said, I'm not a seasoned beekeeper of 30 years. So I don't have that experience under my belt. But what I can tell you is what I have dealt with myself, particularly. One of the things that he pointed out when you're talking about feeding sugar water was the fact that he said it was unnatural. And I said, okay. And I said, fair enough. But I said to him, well, we can start with, when we're talking about unnatural or what's natural or not natural with honeybees, is first of all, them being on this continent, that's not natural, So we can start with that. And then, it kind of move on to
keeping them in a box themselves is not natural.
Keeping them in a nice drop box, that is not natural. Using a plastic foundation inside there, that is not natural. So I'm like, where do you want to go with this? Because there's a lot of things in beekeeping that we do that are not natural. But we also have gotten to a point, I think, with honeybees that we ask them, or we need them to pollinate all these plants so that we can, not only survive, but really thrive. Because without pollinators, and we understand that some of the native pollinators in the areas have declined a little bit, we really kind of rely on these honeybees to take care of a lot of things. So again, when you're talking about natural and unnatural, there's a lot of variables at play there, So I think, like you said, feeding sugar water back, to really plug out that, if you're going to go with a single deep management, and I don't have a lot of experience with it, so I can't speak too strongly about that, but I think plugging out that bottom brood nest with a honey sugar water, so that those bees in that one box have plenty of food to survive that winter, I would think that would be key. And really, it kind of Ian Stepler goes into to a lot of that too, because that's the method that he uses.
Yeah, they have to do that up there to get through the winter, So
for sure,
absolutely. What do you think about that, Spanky?
What was the question?
Is single brood management better for overwintering, or is it better to put like another deep, or because some people say, hey, you just want to overwinter in a single deep. They're not using as much resources. They can keep it heated better versus putting another deep on there. So, what's your opinion?
You gotta start asking the questions. Where are you located at? What's your climate? What's your bees' condition?
Yeah.
You gotta ask all those questions first. Otherwise, you can try it if you want, but somebody could have went, oh, did you know it's this or this, and that's why that didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the only person stopping you from doing something is yourself. But at the end of the day, if your bees are dead, that's on you.
Yeah, appreciate you coming on tonight, Southeastern. It was good having you on here tonight. So the chat is open. Anybody's welcome to come in if they want to. Anybody got any questions they want to go over? We'll definitely do that. But while we're waiting on that, let's talk to Tom and Melissa a little bit about their conference they had out there and how that went. I'll be honest with you, I had a blast. It was great. It felt like Cayman Reynolds' first year at a conference. Good energy there, good speakers with Mr. Ed and Greg Burns, and you had also Nathan from Duck River was there, and I didn't get to go to you guys kind of had like an experience, and you had more beginners classes, and I really didn't go to any of the beginner classes, and then I spent the whole entire time selling Tom and Melissa's honey. So how did you guys?
You were a great salesman. Good job.
I did good, I think. I just kept slipping money to her. I'm like, I told Melissa, I said, Melissa, when you bring honey to a bee conference, and most people have bees, they're not going to buy honey. And as soon as I said that, it changed, and we were selling it left and right. So.
But it wasn't just honey; it was bourbon barrel aged honey. It wasn't just plain honey. It was, So I think that was the selling point, and that there was nobody else there selling any honey either. It was just you selling my honey, my bourbon honey. So it went good.
One second place at the Nabi, which is a great accomplishment.
Yeah, one second place at Nabi or Navy. Isn't that how it came in us to say Navy? Yeah. It's Nabi. Anyway, so yeah, one second place, and it's been selling like crazy ever since we got it out of the barrel. So
Ricky, my question for you is, how much of a cut did Melissa give you for selling that?
Secrets, Tom. What you don't know won't hurt you, brother.
I mean, I feel like it should have been a fair amount, if you're doing all the work, it just only seems right.
Yeah. Well, I did sell some honey for Spanky there, and believe it or not, I still got his money and all his honey, and he hasn't even got it back yet. So.
Maybe you shouldn't have let that cat out of the bag, because he may have forgotten about that, but now he understands.
I may be in trouble.
So as far as the conference, it went really well. We got a lot of positive feedback because we sent out exit surveys to everybody that attended the conference. Of course, you don't get all of those back. We got probably just under half of them back, around about something like that.
Yeah, probably.
And for the most part, everything was like positive. Everybody had a good time. Everybody was like, this was great, well ran, all that stuff. The speakers all had great comments because we gave them exit surveys. The vendors, the only issue was the venue needs to be bigger next year. I think we were like where the vendor area was. We knew going in it was going to be a little tight. I mean, and I think it worked, but I think it needed to be a little bit more roomy. You know what I mean? Right. And then even next, like space, we were maxed out. So either way, we were already planning that we were going to have a different venue next year. So that was probably the most complaints, if you want to call it that, would be the size of the venue, really. And then we had a little bit of audio issues at the end of the day. One of the speakers started humming on us in the experienced side. So that, it's one of those technical issues that there's not a whole lot you can do about it. It wasn't our personal equipment or the EMBA's personal equipment. It was the hotel's. So we tried to work with it the best we could to correct it. But really, those were the main complaints that we got.
Yeah, there was a little small, subtle things, but that was a couple of them, and there wasn't a lot of complaints about that, but I would say more of good, friendly suggestions because we really did want everyone's honest feedback. We weren't looking for, well, just give us all fives. That's
gold stars and pats on the back. We want to know exactly I asked a lot of specific questions on the exit survey because we wanted to know specifically what we could do to improve next year, to make everybody's experience the best it could possibly be for the money that they're spending.
Yeah.
So, and I think that we got good feedback from that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Dawson said make sure y'all have some food trucks next time too. So
that would be a cool thing. It really
I
would.
thought there was supposed to be food trucks at Navi.
Right.
I was looking for those food trucks all day and they never showed up.
So realize too, there's only so much that we're going to be able to do. We're two people of other people on a board. So we have to agree on everything as a collective. When I had originally mentioned to a few people, I'm like, hey, this is going so well. Maybe we should actually do a second day. I felt like I was going to get darts thrown at me. And people were like, no, because it really does take a lot of work to put that on. It's several months of planning, a lot of long board meetings, a lot of emails. I think my email inbox filled up more over the last month or two with the Eastern Missouri Beekeepers Association agenda than it did my own landscaping stuff. So, it really got pretty, it was good though. We were glad to put forth the effort and do it. And, still have a lot of momentum, moving forward to be able to, go maybe even a little bit, better, and then obviously a little bit bigger to accommodate more people, because I feel like that there was more people out there that probably would have come that we could have helped, to educate along the way. So we're pretty proud of what we did, but we're always looking for feedback on how we can make things better from the experience of, the attendees, and because that's why we're doing it. We're not doing it just to do something good for us. We want to help out the people in and around the community. And that's our number one goal. So I think we really have a great group of people at the Eastern Missouri Beekeepers Association. I had one of the commercial guy that's in Missouri, earlier this week. Him and I had a long conversation, and he actually complimented us. And, because one of the things I said to him was, we don't just want to put out information, especially if it's not good information. We want to put out the correct information, and that's what is really important. And he said, I'm glad you said that. And I feel like you guys are doing a really good job at that. So, having good information for people, not just regurgitating some stuff you might have heard on the internet that may not necessarily be true. We want to have solid information. A lot of those board members that help to teach the beginner, those guys are top notch. They're really good. So we're glad to be a part of that entire organization. Westcliff Honey actually asked a question on here via, did you have a high moisture coming out of the barrel? So yes, the answer is we did. So I'll probably start by saying I generally like to keep our honey somewhere between about 17.3 and 17.6. I realize some of the books say if it's under 18.6, you're good. I personally believe that when you have even a slightly lesser moisture content, I think the feels good in your mouth is a little bit better. But also I think it condenses some of those sugars a little bit where you get a better overall flavor out of it, if that makes sense. And you're not really changing it by that much of a moisture content. So what we did do is going into the barrel would have been between 17.3 and 17.6. I had started with a 15-gallon bourbon barrel, and of course there's no liquid left in it, but there's plenty of moisture left inside of that. And along the way, once we had been there for a period of time, I kind of would tip it up and I would put that on my refractometer to see what it was. And it jumped up somewhere around that 20, not quite 21%, but a 20 to high 20%. I knew obviously I didn't want to leave it there, and I was contemplating how to get it back down. One of our board members said, well, you guys have some heated bottling tanks. And I said, yeah, I've got one specifically I want to use that on. He said, just put it in there and leave the lid off. And so I did. And what I did do is I would stir it, maybe a couple of times a day, every other day. Whenever I had a chance, I'd go down there, I would stir it. And pretty quickly I got the moisture content back down to where I wanted, which was at that 17.5 or just slightly below.
You said it took about a week, right, to get the moisture back down?
A little bit longer than a week,
Yeah.
a couple weeks. I mean, I seen a lot of moisture drop out of it within the first week, yes. But to get it back down to where we kind of wanted it, around that 17.5, 17.3, 17.6, it took a couple of weeks. So it wasn't that big a deal. Now, if you were in a larger holding tank where there was less surface area on the top, that may take a little bit longer. We did add a little bit of heat to that on that bottling tank. I was up around 99, 100 degrees. That's kind of where I feel really comfortable with. I really don't want to exceed that 104. So I think that part worked out really well, and I'm eager to get a couple more barrels and get it going, get more in the workings, because I feel like I'm going to run out here pretty quickly.
I think it's going to be a big seller for you guys. It did really good at y'all's conference, and everybody loved the flavor. I love the flavor. Really give a nice charcoal, and I can remember back in my day what bourbon tastes like, and it definitely give you those tones of that in there. So, but it's great for you guys because you're getting those tones out of that barrel, and then you're giving it back to the guy, and he's putting bourbon back in it. So it's a win-win for both of you guys.
That's what I thought too. It's a win-win for everybody, right?
Absolutely.
So Brian asked, what advice do you have for putting on a conference?
Have a good team.
Definitely.
I don't know how Cayman and Laurel did this themselves without having anybody the first few years, because it's so much. We just have so many amazing people on our board that are really talented in what they do. Janet does all of our web stuff and did our graphics. Michael Kilfroy did all of our slideshow stuff and put storyboards together. Mike Godfrey, he does all the tech stuff, the audio, visual, all that tech stuff for us. And then, Dan's our president and makes sure everything, all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. And then Laura did a great job with decorating our banquet the night before. So, I mean, just having a really good team that is, talented and then Tom likes to talk. So he was great at bringing all of our speakers and introducing our speakers, so getting all the vendors in, that was amazing. Just have a good team around you.
Mm-hmm. Well,
So
I would
how
say,
did y'all secure all those people to come, like Greg Burns and them? How did you get them to come? Was it, you say, hey, I got this conference coming. You guys need to come. It'll be great, and
it was kind of funny because when we joined the board, we were asked to sit in on these board meetings, and he's saying that I'm the talker now. So anyway, so we were asked to sit in on these board meetings, and we were the young people, right, to sit in on these board meetings, and we were telling about all this YouTube stuff, and oh, that's phooey. There's nothing good on YouTube. And then, I mean, I'm sure some of you have heard the story. We brought in Dr. Peck, and they were all impressed with Dr. Peck. Well, where'd you find him? YouTube. And they were like, oh my God, he's amazing. So then just because we were able to bring in Dr. Peck, they just assumed we knew everybody on YouTube. I'm like, well, no, not really. So we just kind of, then they're like, we're going to do this conference. Why don't you, since you know everybody on YouTube, why don't you guys go ahead and bring the speakers in? So they're like, oh my God.
Well, it would seem appropriate since I'm the program director. So that's kind of the position,
But we were tasked with this job before you became the program director, technically. So we just kind of reached out to them, people who we thought would work good for our conference. We wanted Greg Burns because I felt like his climate is kind of similar to ours for the topics that we wanted him to speak about. And so we just kind of reached out to these people and asked them to come, and prayed that they were available, and they were, and they agreed, and it was just all worked out great. And then his vendors, he actually talked to, we've talked to John Hill for the last couple of years, and Tom just reached out to different people. And
so all the speakers that we brought in, all the vendors we brought in, I would say that most of those people are my friends, and not just because I purchased from them, but people you have a genuine relationship with. That's right. So, when you're making these solid, relationships with people, when you're involved in the beekeeping community specifically here, right? Having met all these folks, having just genuine conversations with them, I think that's key in anything. I wasn't trying to sell anybody anything. You build a relationship with somebody, and I'm telling you. So I've told people this before, even when I was on stage introducing people. I said, if you go out there in that vendor hall, every vendor that's out there, with the exception of, there was a couple ladies that were from the St. Louis area that sold like lip balms and soaps and things like that. I didn't know them personally. And they were great vendors. I mean, phenomenal vendors. But every other person that was out there vendoring, I knew them personally, and I have all those products. And it's not just products that I have and don't use. These were products that I do use. I have, Ricky's horizontal hives. I've got 3 of them.
And an observation hive.
And an observation hive now, and it's awesome. It's beautiful. Nick from Motherload. I use those feeders. They're phenomenal. They're great. Our local bee supplier, Jane from Isabees, she's a wealth of information. She's always a kind person to talk to, give you great deals on quality products. So
wealth
again,
knowledge.
John Hill, the same way. One of our newer friends, Golden Bee. He's a local Missouri guy, sells great products and stands behind them. All these people that we had there are people that have products that I believe in. I just didn't bring people in just to sell something or whatever. I believe in all these. So again, having all these personal connections with vendors, speakers, and everybody alike, I think made it much easier. But again, having a great team around you, that's key to actually putting it on.
And the vendors, we didn't want to have a lot of overlap. So
right.
we didn't have Daydont or Man Lake there because we had Jane with Isabees. She sells anything from Daydont and Man Lake that even better be that you could want to get, So, I mean, you were there, Ricky. There wasn't any vendors that are also selling the same thing. Like we had Matthew from Comfort Pro. There was nobody else there selling bee jackets or protective gear or anything like that. Because we genuinely wanted all of our vendors to sell, to make money, and to get their name out and, be there for the attendees and whatnot. And we just didn't want a lot of overlap so that everybody would do well. And, so you guys would come back next year.
Right. Well, and that's another
something else about y'all's conference and, that I found, and it was a smaller conference, but being able to talk to other, for me to talk to other vendors helped me a little bit. It helped me with my business to understand how they're running their business, and that was great. And then I got to talk to Greg Burns, who definitely popped my bubble while I was down there. And I said, "Hey man, I bought this breeder queen. She's coming in," and he's like, "Well, let me tell you some stuff about that," and put his hand on my shoulder, and he went in this big spiel, and I'm like, "So say I lose money on this?" And well, Rick, and then so not only was his class good, I got to talk to him afterwards, and he got to stand there and talk for a long time to me, right? Mm-hmm. And had a very good conversation. And he was able to do that because it was a little bit smaller conference, a little more homey feeling. Mm-hmm. And that's the great thing about these little conferences like you guys are putting on. It probably won't be little next year, but if you get a chance to go to a little conference, it may be worth your while. And I appreciate you asking me to come because the networking will help me down the road. So I appreciate that.
I think that's a valid point that you bring up. And this is for anybody who wants to make more connections that are in the audience right now, that want to make more connections with some of these guys, like just say a Bob Benny that you can't otherwise talk to at a 3,000 person conference like at NABI. Now, I'll be the first to say I really enjoy Cayman's his conferences that he's put on. They've really grown. I mean, there's something to be said about that, right? I will also say I just never want that conference to lose its personal touch. Sometimes, and this is not all the time, I feel like that things can lose their luster when it just gets to be about numbers. And I'm not saying that that's what's happening here with NABI, not at all. Because I think is still there. The personal friendships and such, those are awesome. And I really enjoy that. I think that's best. So if you're really wanting to make connections with some of these speakers that you may like, and or even some of these vendors that you want to talk to about whatever, they'll have a lot more time to spend one-on-one time with you, going over any of the details that you want at a 300-person conference as opposed to a 3,000 person conference. So that's a great point, Ricky, bringing that up.
And you brought some like Hilco and some of these others. I'm not talking about myself, but you brought a lot of good vendors there that people can talk to that are on YouTube or and stuff like that. And I'll be honest with you, I probably made at least 6 or 7 new friends while I was there, and that wouldn't happen maybe at a big conference, because again, it's more homey, better feeling. You know what I'm saying? And just getting to talk with some people in Missouri. To be honest with you, people kept saying, "You're from Missouri, right?" And I'm like, "No, I'm from North Carolina." So they, for some reason, kept thinking I was from Missouri.
I think they were thinking you were from down in the Ozarks.
Maybe that's what
Hey, they just know that you were a good old boy, just like us, and that means that Missouri would gladly adopt you. That's what was meant there.
Yeah,
good vibes. Yeah.
I think our attendance was between 280 and 285. I can't remember exactly what it was. So just under 300.
Yep.
We are looking for a bigger venue here next year. We'll see how it works out, how it goes and such. We have to do what everybody else wants to do in that regard. And we don't want to lose our focus there, on education and the community, for the Eastern Missouri beekeepers. But yeah.
I think Westcliff had a question there just saying, I was asking, how much honey did you put in that drum when you got your honey out of it?
Okay. So I used a smaller barrel. It was a 15-gallon barrel, and I only put 10 gallons in it. So what was suggested to me was you'll actually have more of the honey touching a surface in a smaller barrel like that than you would out of a 55-gallon, because there's, you're much closer to the edges. So you're getting more of a contact out of a smaller barrel. So I only put 10 gallons in it. And I believe it was a 15-gallon, if I'm not mistaken. And whenever we turned it back into the guy, he charged us nothing to do it. He just said, I just want to use it after you guys utilize it, because I'm going to use it in reverse. And I thought, what a better way to be able to utilize that. So as far as I know, that's how he was going to use it from there on. So it was a great experience for us. It was just something we thought we wanted to try. We did it, and people liked it.
Yeah, it was really good. Everybody really enjoyed it while we was there. So.
Yeah.
And then I think Lee throwed up there, has anybody hit a deer lately? And apparently on my way home, my daughter says, "Daddy, look at those cute deers." And I swear, I practically stopped in the middle of the road, and one of them just banged the side of my truck. And I'm like, man, this truck don't need no more dents, And I got home, and thank goodness there's enough salt on there that it just knocked the salt off the truck. So that's all good.
So you all still have salt on your roads there in North Carolina?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we got quite a bit up here. Yep.
That depends on where you're at.
Yeah, if you're down there where Spanky's at, they don't have salt on their roads still.
Well, it ain't never snowed down here yet.
Well,
he hasn't even got no snow. He's like, what are you about? Maybe 1,000 feet in elevation difference, Spanky?
I couldn't tell you. It blew one day. That's the closest it got to me.
It blew one
well,
day.
hey, Ricky, what's a good indicator is if you look right behind him, he's got some bees on some flowers back there, so he can't have any snow with those flowers behind him there in that picture.
Yeah, that's right. Spanky,
right behind us,
Spanky. Oh yeah, DC's right. Yeah, and I have hit deers in some of my other vehicles, and I'm like, dude, you're gonna cost me some money, and I just slide him back to the truck and take him home. I mean, I've done that before. That's no lie. So now, not possums or raccoons. Trust me, I don't do any of that stuff. Even though my wife is Hispanic, and I bet she could make a good dish out of it.
I bet she could.
So I'm not crazy about venison. My dad's a hunter, and so I ate it growing up, and I don't know. I'm not crazy about venison, but you've done that before where I think somebody in front of you hit a deer. And so Tom calls up my brother-in-law, Ben. He's like, "Hey, Ben, this lady just hit this deer. Do you want me to grab it and throw it in the back of my truck for you?"
Yep.
And I think that it was in a more populated area, so the cops had come already. He's like, well, I have to, because I think it was still alive or something. So he's like, I have to call him to discharge my weapon, blah, 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 blah. And he did.
Yeah.
He threw the deer in the back of his truck, and Ben came and picked it up that evening. So it was all legal. Like,
the funny part of that story was when that officer discharged that weapon, well, he had to get permission to do so, right? And after he discharged the weapon, it took 3 shots. And I asked him, this may be a little gruesome. I'm like, are you going to get a good shot on that guy or what? And I asked him if he wanted me to pull my pistol out and handle it with one fair swoop so that we did it in a humane manner. I don't know if he thought that was too humorous, but
Yeah, Dawson, I'm sorry I didn't get to ask your question about the mothballs. That would have been a great one to ask Fredrick Dunn. He wanted to know if Fredrick Dunn has ever smelled a mothball, and I guarantee you he's done that. So it would have been a really good question. We just didn't get to it. Yeah, if anybody don't know, Dawson was we're out at 2,600 feet above sea level up here where we're at, and there's a mountain in front of me that's right at I think it's right at 3,500 feet above sea level. So when the snow gets finally the air area, there's a big mountain behind us that just grabs the snow and dumps it on us. And then by the time it gets down to Spanky, it's all gone because they had to go over the next mountain to get down there to him. So
It's just rain.
yeah, exactly. You guys don't have many mountains out there in Missouri, do you? Tom, listen. I mean, they're more like rolling hills. That's about it.
Yeah. When you get down in southern Missouri near Branson, that's in the Ozarks, you'll see a lot of pretty large rolling hills down there.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of Missouri that's relatively flat, especially when you get to northern Missouri.
Yeah, floods up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if I'm not mistaken, Lambert. He put a message there. I think he's up in Pennsylvania. Is that right? Lambrook, are you in Pennsylvania? If I'm not mistaken. Am I wrong about that? He was one of my very first subscribers. I'm pretty sure when I first got on YouTube.
Yeah, there's not much elevation by us. I just looked up to see right where I'm at. We're at 518. So
what's my parents' house?
500 maybe.
Well, I'm just curious because their weather is different from ours.
Yeah, so on the ridge, we're kind of on a ridge where we're at. And what's funny about that, when toward this side of the state, when it comes to snowfall totals and things like that, sometimes on the ridge that I'm on can see a higher snowfall than it will on the bottom side of the ridge, which again is not that great. It's not even considered roughly even a mountain, of course. But there can be a difference in snowfall totals. So there's a little elevation difference there.
And Westcliff, I've been to the Rockies at Glacial National Park. And I first got there at the airport. I'm like, these mountains are not that big. And the next thing you know, it's like your head snapped back trying to look up the mountaintop. I mean, I'm like, yeah, they've really got some big. Let's see. They really got some big mountains there.
DC's B said something about any of Missouri I saw was flat. Went to basic training there. So if he was in the Army, he went to Fort Leonard Wood, which from where we're at, just west of St. Louis. He would be out in a place called Rolla, which is slightly more west, but slightly south of us. And that is pretty flat out there. There's, again, a fair amount of Missouri is relatively flat.
It's about 2 hours from us.
Yeah. That's an
hour and a half, 2
about an
hours.
hour, a little over an hour. Yeah. It's an Army base out there.
It looks like Tim and Hannah, I think they said they're 280 feet. So they're right down on the Gulf Coast there. I don't know who wrote that. That was not me that wrote that. That was my wife. I have a feeling.
17-foot elevation. I feel like you're more than that.
I met Ricky. I typed in the wrong one. That was my elevation.
Oh, okay.
That makes more sense.
I was going to say something's right near the water.
Yeah, I was clicking on the wrong screen. My bad.
So you're 17 feet above sea level, and Lee can tell you because I was down at his house and he's talking about being flooded from the hurricanes down there, and I mean, and then he was telling me something about they decided to get the bills out of the mailbox before they left, and his dad said something about there's a water bill in there for sure. So.
That's a good one, Ricky.
Yeah,
yeah.
The flood we had here in 16, if I was sitting in the chair where I'm at now, the water would be touching my chest.
Oh boy!
And
So
this end of I live in a double wide, and this end of the trailer is 5.5 foot off the ground.
Oh wow!
And then it was still that much higher inside.
So what I hear you saying, Lee, is that you would have to be working your production with a snorkel right now.
Exactly.
Almost. Yeah.
Luckily, I didn't have bees then, or they would have all floated off.
Yeah.
So Lee, when you're, I mean, what is it? Was it the storm surge that got you guys, or was it just the heavy rains?
It was just a bunch of heavy rains we were having here. It was no hurricane or nothing in at the time. Just a bunch of rain.
Yeah.
Too much rain and not enough drainage.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, gun lines talking about the P-Roads and lifeboats. We had a helicopter on the roof that took Renee and my youngest went off on a cable up the helicopter.
Oh, wow. That sounds like it's fun and not so fun at the same time.
Yep.
You may have to put your bees on your roof down there where you're at, Lee, just in case something happens.
A guy on the back of the neighborhood, which our neighborhood kind of dips down towards the back, but he had a single wide trailer, and even if I was standing under it, I couldn't jump up and touch the bottom of his trailer. During that flood, you couldn't see the trailer. The entire roof was covered.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah. Lee, now around where you're at, the soil condition, is that a lot of sandy, loomy type soil, or is that a lot of clay? What do you got?
I'd say a lot of more loomy soil. It's soft, a lot of softer dirt. We got a river through the woods, I'd say a half mile from me. And then I got a little small creek that wraps around the back.
Okay.
That always holds water in it.
Now,
I hand drilled a little small, one of the old pitcher pump water wells. I hand drilled one in the back, and I was hitting water at 6 foot.
Oh, wow.
It started getting wet, and then the bottom of the well itself now is at about 10 foot in L pump.
Yeah, you don't have to go far then, do you?
No, not at all.
How far are you away from the coastline?
A bird's flight, I'd say hour and a half.
Okay.
How about a bee?
About the same. I
Can that bee fly that long?
I doubt that.
I doubt it too.
Let's see. I might be able to pull up. I know when we drive down there to Grand Isle area, it usually takes us 2.5, 3 hours, I believe. Let's see if I can pull this.
So Lambrook says you need bee rafts. Maybe you just need to put your bees on a dock and have the dock in the middle of your yard.
Yeah,
a bee dock.
There you go.
Get a bee dock.
If I go direct south from me, it's 92 miles to the coast. Down by Port Fourchon.
Yeah. So that makes sense. Probably an hour and a half by a highway type speed.
Well, you got to take some back roads and everything down there. It probably takes us about 2.5 hours.
Oh, okay. I see. Yeah.
Bunch of little towns, and you got to go across a couple of canals.
That's different down there where Lee's at, and the highway's in the middle of a river. As I was headed to Texas, I'm like, who puts a highway right in the middle of a river, or it's a canal or whatever it is down there? And I'm like, this is crazy. And I'm looking both sides, and people are fishing and see alligators, beside of the river there. It's like this is unreal. So
that bridge is only like 18 miles long.
Yeah. 18
hey,
miles
Ricky,
long.
do you have any alligators up there in the mountains there?
No. Thank goodness. No, we stay away from the alligators up here.
Thank God, right?
Yeah, thank God. That's right. Yeah, we don't want nothing to do with them.
Yeah, I'm about 10 miles southeast of Baton Rouge, and then about an hour from New Orleans. Okay. Brian and Jen from Flower Street Farm stopped by here after ABF.
Yeah. I've never had an opportunity to meet his wife, but he seems like a pretty good fella.
Yep. He ain't too bad.
Ain't too bad.
I tell you what, some of that cream honey he gave us, it was a container. Brian, what was in that container? It's white, and it tasted to me almost like marshmallows. I don't know what it was, but my little girl Amber absolutely ate every bit of that. I don't know what it was, but she loved it. She just kept eating it.
I've got it.
What was good was that honey butter or whatever it was you guys brought
Yes.
last
honey
year.
butter cream, yeah.
Mhm.
And I know you sent us the recipe how you made it, but I'm gonna have to have you guys send it again because I'm sure it's lost in a text feed somewhere.
And I'm pretty sure
That was
that's the
so
reason
good.
I'm getting fat too. So
Oh yeah.
From the honey butter he brought you
Yeah.
last year.
Yep. Hey, I just never lost it.
That's right. It's still there, right?
Still there.
Yeah.
In his head.
Now Brian's let's see, his cacao creamed honey. That is good in coffee.
Yeah.
Okay.
He makes a lot of good creamed honeys. He's a lot like Russ Copeland and those guys making that stuff. They're really good. I seen some of the stuff that Brian was he had posted on the Facebook page, and when I first seen it, I thought he was making chocolates. I was like, "Oh, this is chocolate honey," and it was actually soap. So, but it looked delicious.
You can try it.
Yeah, that's right. You can try it.
Yeah.
I'm
You're
curious.
right out.
I'm curious, Brian, how many different flavors of creamed honey do you make? And do you just make certain flavors seasonally, or do you always have all of them in stock all year long?
Let's see.
That's a good question.
Good question. Yeah.
I've
DC
got
said
7 of his creamed honeys right now.
DC said they ate honey butter when they grew up. So
I know that was really good though.
Yeah,
Where-
Brian's saying Russell makes good creamed honey too. He does. I got some of his strawberry creamed honey.
yeah, we've ate all the. Let's see, which one was it? It was the blueberry. We've ate all the blueberry that we got from him, and there was some other flavor that Ruth really liked. She ate all that, but I mean, I don't know. There's something about cream honey I like a little bit better. I'm getting to where I like crystallized honey better than I like regular honey. It doesn't seem to stick to my tongue as much, and you just like you can really work the flavor out of the crystallized honey. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah. Well, that's funny how the taste sometimes can take on a little bit different flavor when it is either crystallized and or creamed. It can be this, we take some of, or Melissa does take some of our liquid honey, creams it, and it really does. And it's still the same thing. You haven't added anything to it, right?
Nothing.
Changes the flavor,
But it
too.
does change the flavor,
Mhm.
and I think it has to do with that texture. The way it maybe feels in your mouth or sits on your tongue.
Yep, texture affects taste just like smell.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Brian, when
talking
you-
about-
Brian,
I'm
when you
talking
make
about
that, sorry, Brian,
go
when you
ahead.
make that creamed honey, are you using like you do strawberry or blueberry, whatever? Are you dehydrating or freeze drying those and then crushing it, pulverizing it into a powder to mix it in,
That's a good question.
or are you using some other way to introduce that flavor in?
Says creamed honey softens. Oh,
The sweet
I can't say
bite.
the sweet bite.
Sweet bite of honey. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that.
I was actually thinking about trying to work Brian in out here at St. Louis to kind of give a little bit of a presentation or a talk. I think he'd probably be pretty good at that.
Oh, I'd say so. He seems pretty educated from listening to him talk to Lee, and I watched all that stuff. And again, that goes back to, Brian, he reached out to me and asked for a little one-frame observation. It's about the same one that I did for you guys to auction off.
Mhm.
And, actually, they didn't know much about Brian. And then, Lee had him on, and I think I talked to him a couple of times, and it's just amazing that, don't know this guy, anything about him, and next thing you know, you're kind of friends with him, and you understand. Well, he's a way better beekeeper than I am. His education level is through the roof. So it's amazing on here.
I'd have to say he trusted me a lot because he stopped by here after Nobby on his way to ABF and dropped off an entire truckload of bee equipment and
Oh, my
left it with me.
Just left it with you.
And we thought about doing a giveaway on the streams and everything, but he made it back too quick.
Oh man, dude. Yeah, that would have been awesome. Yeah, he does a lot of educational things with the kids. So that one frame observation hive really will work out good for him. Let's see. Somebody's got a question. Spanky, that's for you, brother.
We'll see. I don't know how the bees are going to build out. I know they're in there. They've been flying around. But I got to see what they're going to do this year.
Well, guys, it's 10 o'clock, and I've got to work tomorrow. Some of these other guys are in different time zones, so they've got it made like Tom and Melissa.
Well, Tom needed to show off one of his new things that he just got.
Okay, go ahead.
Quick. This is something that I'm telling you is absolutely amazing. It's just you need to see it.
Everybody should buy one.
It is very beautiful. And by the way, I never did take a picture of that. I need a picture of that. Yeah. It really is gorgeous.
Nobody will guess where this came from.
That looks nice.
Yeah, I like the way it is.
Yeah.
Turn around.
I appreciate y'all letting us do it. And Tom and Melissa, they said, I bet you got all kinds of beautiful hives at your house. And I'm like, no, I don't. I make them for everybody else, and then I get the rejects that comes through the wood department that don't make it to everybody else, and that's all I get is the junk. So
you got a beautiful hive right above you there.
That's right.
Yeah, there we go.
Hey, I forgot to tell you, Ricky, and I was going to tell you I need 16 more of these by next week. You can have those done, right?
No. I'll be honest with you, Tom, I had 2 customers come over wanting me to build a hive kind of like yours. Yeah. And I said, do you know John Hilco has the same hive over there? And they're like, really? And so I did get rid of one customer, and the other lady says, but yours is so much prettier. And I'm like, well, if you need me to make one, here's my card. But just remember now, you're going to have to pay shipping. So John Hill's got one over there. So I think I did finally talk her out of getting one for me, and she will go ahead and got one from John Hillco. So, but I appreciate it. It's an honor to make it. It was definitely a challenge. It was something different that I hadn't done before, and it's a lot of fun. So I appreciate it, guys.
Well, I do know that you spent a lot of time on it, and I know that there was a lot of value there, and I'm sure that you would not have made that for anybody. So I really do appreciate sincerely that you took the time to do that for us, and we're definitely going to put this to good use, and it'll be helping to educate some younger people, and just the wow factor there may draw people into the beauty of beekeeping just by seeing a nice work of art like that bees are displayed in. So
I'm sure the kids are going to be like, oh, look at these bees. Oh, what? This hive's got lightning all over it,
That's right.
So,
well, I'm certain that they will. And especially the teachers or parents that are going to be around are going to be like, that is absolutely gorgeous. Yeah. And I'll say, oh, I know a guy that'll build you this for nothing. Let me give you his
we like to build stuff. We appreciate you, Tom, and Melissa and Lee. I appreciate you being on tonight, brother. Spanky, man, I'll talk to you later. I definitely got to get down to your house and drop your all stuff off.
Yeah, you got to pick up this desk.
Yeah, you've got me another grafting desk that they picked up. I think I'm going to keep this one for myself. But I appreciate everybody on the chat tonight for your comments, being on with Fredrick Dunn tonight. You guys, being able to network with us and the comments you make, I do appreciate that. I appreciate you coming on, supporting me and these other guys out here. And so we'll see what happens next Thursday, and hopefully y'all will show back up. Appreciate everybody.
Thank you, Ricky. See you, Lee.
Bye. Have a good evening.
See ya.
See ya.